How are you refilling your cup? How are you reconnecting not only with yourself, but with your community? How are you giving back to those around you, but also giving to yourself, right? Retreats can just be an individual thing. So I want to just give you some ideas of things that you can do if you are a business owner, a team leader, and you're like, I really want to do this for my team. Great. Let us do that. If you don't know where to start, we've done this for 6 years. We've really worked out some kinks and we figured out what works and what doesn't work. So if you want to have a retreat for your team, let us know. We can help you plan that. We can figure that out. Talk about what the logistics look like. Is it a half day? Is it a full day? Is it an overnight? Let us help you to provide that opportunity for yourself and for your team.
Welcome to the WingSpace Podcast, a place to take up space, where we talk about all things wellness, from nutrition to movement to sleep and stress, and so much more. With me, your host, Jennifer Voorhaar, along with special guests and experts within our Hope and Healing wellness community. Let's jump in.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the WingSpace Podcast, a place to take up space. I am your host, Jennifer Voorhaar, and on today's episode, we're going to do a little recap of our recent staff retreat, as well as talk about how you can create your own retreat for yourself or your team. It's so important for us to be able to create these moments of retreat within our days. And it may not look like a whole weekend. It may not look like even a whole day, but hang on. I want you to listen to this. Before we jump in, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to help us bring this information to more people, mental health nuggets and good content related to health and wellness. It's so important for us to get this message out. So thank you so much for doing that. I am recording this episode just a few days after our staff retreat at Hope and Healing. And I want to give you a little bit of background about this staff retreat, because what we had this weekend is certainly not where it started. So it all starts back with this idea that the work that we do is hard. Now, regardless of what industry you work in, people work hard. You go to work every day. It's, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, maybe longer. I don't know. We're pouring out of a cup. Maybe we're being poured back into, maybe we're not. But, life is hard and days are hard. Some days are easier. Great. But we still have to find ways to fill the cup. And if you've listened a couple episodes ago, I talked about the container in which we hold stress. It's different for all of us. We have to find ways to fill the cup in a good way, right? To fill it with good stuff, but then also find ways of releasing the pressure so that the bad stuff goes out. I'm actually envisioning now, I'm not a Stanley Cup user. I'm more of a Yeti girl. I'm sorry, don't hate me. But I recently saw this ad, I guess it was an Instagram reel, that the Stanley has like 2 inserts, right? And so you can put like one drink in one side and one drink in the other side, and then you just turn your straw, I guess. I'm not really quite sure how it works. And if you spill it, like, do they all mix in together? I don't know. But it just gave me this idea, right? When we're talking about this stress container in which we're holding all of our stress, maybe it's divided into 2 places. Maybe there's good stress on one side, or good stuff. Let's not even say stress. Let's say good stuff on one side and that stressful stuff on the other. I don't know. Anyway, so when I first had staff on the team, we were 2 years into our business. The practice had been open for 2 years, and it was approaching the fall of 2020. I don't even have to begin to describe for you what 2020 was like. I'm going to tell you what happened for us. We had moved into a new space. We had outgrown our space over the course of, I guess, about 16 months. We had outgrown our space. And we were fortunate to find another space just across the street, basically. We moved in the week between Christmas and New Year's, 2019. Things were going swimmingly, right? January was great. February was great. We started hearing rumblings of this virus thing. And I'll never forget, March 17th, I walked out into the hallway. Meredith, my clinical supervisor and I were just talking about this weekend. I walked out to the hallway and Meredith came out and Anastasia, who was previously our clinical director. The three of us stood in the hallway and I said, guys, what do we do? And we agreed, I think we go home. So here we had this new office. We were expanding. We had tripled our size, or maybe even more, because now we had our own waiting room and our own bathroom, and we're going home. So fast forward to the fall, and we had been in it, right? We had been in it with the community. We had been in it for ourselves, trying to keep ourselves safe and healthy, our family safe and healthy, trying to figure out what this school thing looks like for kids who are doing online schooling, working with our clients. And we just decided like we got to do something, right? Like it was starting to be kind of okay for us to do some outside stuff. And so we created this half-day retreat. And we did stand-up paddleboard down at the wharf in Leonardtown. If you have been there before, it's a beautiful place. It was actually the last day that they were going to do stand-up paddleboard for the season. They were going to be closing and putting all their paddleboards away. So we did stand-up paddleboard, and then we had dinner at a local restaurant. And then we headed down to meet a local yoga instructor who did a yoga class for us. And that was it. There was 5 of us, and it was a great night. And so as the next year came about, they were like, okay, what are we going to do now? So every year we've expanded on it a little bit. A couple of years ago, we had a full day planned. We started the morning at a local coffee shop. We had breakfast. Then we walked across the street and did a craft. We had, I don't remember the exact order of these things, so pardon me, but we did have stand-up paddleboard that year. We did have yoga that year back at our studio. And our clinical director, Anastasia, had already relocated to another state. And she created her own retreat that mirrored ours. So when we were at the local coffee shop having breakfast and chatting, she went to a local coffee shop and I think she spent some time reading. And then when we went to do a craft, I think she went to the bookstore and bought some books. And then when we went to the yoga studio to have yoga, she also went to a local yoga studio. I think she may have even gone kayaking or paddleboarding herself when we were doing that. And she shared with us later that while she didn't have the opportunity to connect with all of us in the way that the retreat is intended to connect, because the purpose of the self-care retreat has kind of evolved over time. And that first year, we had to fill our cups, but then we also wanted to reconnect because we had been out of the office for 6 months. We hadn't been seeing each other in person. We had been having virtual meetings. So it was an opportunity to reconnect. And really, the third reason is that it becomes an opportunity for me to give back to my staff and just show my appreciation for the work that they do. So while Anastasia didn't have the chance to reconnect with us in that way, it was fun because as we were tagging people on socials, she was also tagging her local community on socials, but also tagging us. So we had this like parallel retreat going on. And it gave us this idea that we can share with our community the idea that you don't need an organized retreat in order to treat yourself, to recharge and reconnect. And again, over the years, the retreat has grown in its complexity and its duration and all of those things. And now we do a weekend. We gather Friday afternoon, we depart midday Sunday, and it's great. Some of my biggest highlights of that weekend are seeing the staff. I will tell you, seeing the staff walk into the house where we rent and they're screaming, "Hey, it's so good to see you." And they're smiling and they're hugging each other because there's so many of us that work in different places that we don't physically get to see each other. So having that opportunity to connect is really great. But then also watching them just be doing a puzzle or sitting outside and reading or going for a walk in nature. We had somebody who homeschools their kiddos and bought a book about foraging. And so she went outside to forage herself so that she could, kind of see what plants and things were around. We don't take time to do that, right? And each year that we do our retreat, that we have had this podcast, we've tried to do a little bit of a recap. And I could spend hours telling you about the cool things that happened over our weekend. But really what I want to share with you is those 3 reasons why we do our retreat. I want you to see as 3 reasons why you can and might want to consider. I'm not going to should on you and say you should do it, but I am going to say maybe you could consider, I invite you to consider, how are you refilling your cup? How are you reconnecting not only with yourself, but with your community? How are you giving back to those around you, but also giving to yourself, right? Retreats can just be an individual thing. So I want to just give you some ideas of things that you can do. We actually created these little cards at Hope and Healing, and they're called self-retreatment cards. So in mental health, we have treatment plans and we talk to our clients about goals and objectives and things like that. But we created these retreatment plans, right? Because it's an opportunity for you to say, I'm going to do these things, whether it's every day or weekly or monthly or whatever, but I'm going to create this opportunity for myself to treat myself, right? That self-care retreat process. So if you only have an hour or a couple of hours, what are those things on your list that you really enjoy doing, but you just don't do them? I'm imagining things like sitting on a front or a back porch with a nice beverage. Maybe it's tea, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's just water because you haven't gotten your water in for the day, with a book. And I only have 30 or 45 minutes, but I'm going to set a timer so that I can sit here for that 30 or 45 minutes. And I'm going to sit outside, sunshine, fresh air. You guys have heard me talk about sunshine, fresh air. I'm going to hydrate, enjoy a nice little beverage, treat myself. I'm going to read, or I'm going to just be, right? I'm not going to scroll. I'm not going to, worry about my to-do list. I'm just going to be. Maybe you have a routine where you go to a yoga class or an exercise class every week, and then you hurry from that exercise class to the next thing. I have a girlfriend who drops her kids off, goes straight to the gym, and then gets on with her day. What if she dropped her kiddos off at school, went to that exercise class, happens to be in Leonardtown, walks across the street, gets a beverage from one of the coffee shops that are right there in the square, and does a little cool down walk, not scrolling, maybe having a conversation with a friend or someone that was in class with her, or maybe just listening and looking and engaging all the senses, right? It might take an extra 30 minutes, but I think we're worth that 30 minutes. I think we are. Just changing up the circumstances. So if you are an avid reader and you might sit on the couch and read, I know people who sit on the couch and read while their spouse watches television. And I feel like that's a superpower, because there's no way. Every now and again, I have been super, super enthralled in a book, and it's like the last couple pages and I'm like, I'm just going to finish reading this. And so there will be something on the TV, but I am super, super involved in this book at this point. But those of you that can just pick up a book and read while someone is watching television, that's a superpower. Maybe instead of really having lots of going on in terms of, there's a TV flashing, there's sounds going on, and you're trying to read, what if you go outside? What if you go into a quiet space in your house? What if you create a reading nook so that you can have that place to go? You have heard on our podcast about Tea Motions tea, right? Maybe you take some Tea Motions, you make yourself one of those delicious blends, and you go to a quiet space while you're reading. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to cost any money. That's really the big thing that I want you to understand when I'm inviting you to engage in some self-care retreat opportunities. Those are the things to keep in mind. It 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 doesn't need a lot of energy, and you can just be, right? Now, if you're a person that says, well, I really want to connect with my friends or my family or my coworkers, great. Create that, right? Hey, best friends, let's meet at the gym, do a yoga class. Let's walk across the street to the coffee shop. We can have coffee. We can walk around the square. Oh, let's go into the bookstore and grab some books. And then we can go down to the wharf and sit by the water and read. That's a half day right there. Now, I know that that costs money because we're talking about the gym class and we're talking about buying coffee and we're talking about going to the bookstore, but that's less than, $25, $30. I think you're worth it. If you are a team leader or a supervisor or a boss and you have the ability to do that with your team, how can you create that in your office? If you're able to take it outside of the office, great. If you're not able to take it outside of the office, how can you create that in your space? How maybe the conference room becomes the reading space, and maybe the lunchroom becomes the coffee cafe, right? Maybe there's a big group space and you bring in someone to do a yoga class, or you just go outside and go for a walk together. You can create that as a business owner, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Over time, ours has grown a bit, and it is a little pricier than, certainly a weekend is much pricier than a half a day. But how can you create that where it doesn't have to cost a lot of money? The intention, the effort can make up for not spending a lot of money. Now, I will tell you that we here at Hope and Healing and my team, we really think that creating opportunities to recharge and reconnect and just make time for yourself is super important. And so, over the course of the next couple of months into the next year, into 2026, you're going to hear us talking about not only programs that we're offering that provide opportunities for these little mini self retreats, but also opportunities to have a retreat yourself and enlist our help to create it, to host it. And you just need to come. You just need to bring your people, whether it's, a group of girlfriends and you're like, yeah, we never get together. There's always something going on. We just don't know what to do. Let us help you do that. If you are a business owner, a team leader, and you're like, I really want to do this for my team, great. Let us do that. If you don't know where to start, we've been doing this now for 5 years. This is actually, I don't understand the way that time and numbers work, but it's been 5 years, but we've done 6 retreats, right? So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I don't know. Anyway, we've done this for 6 years. We've really worked out some kinks and we figured out what works and what doesn't work. So if you want to have a retreat for your team, let us know. We can help you plan that. We can figure that out. We can talk about what the logistics look like. Is it a half day? Is it a full day? Is it an overnight? Let us help you to provide that opportunity for yourself and for your team. So keep an ear out, keep an eye out for some information that's coming over the course of the next couple months. This is your tiny little teaser about that. And my invitation for you today is, how can you create between now and our next episode? Okay. The next time an episode drops, you've got a week. Between now and the next episode, how can you create a mini retreat for yourself? Maybe it's 5 minutes of movement and 5 minutes of delicious beverage and 5 minutes of quiet time. Maybe it's 30 minutes of all of those things. You decide what you have available to you and you decide what that grouping of things looks like. I'll tell you, our very first retreat, one of our staff members said, stand-up paddleboard is not for me, but I want to take pictures of you guys while you're doing that. And I just want to hear all about it when you come back. And so, we were waving at her from the paddleboards and she was on the side and she was perfectly content doing that. And I think one year somebody was like, I really am not interested in doing yoga, but I'm super interested in just kind of laying here and doing my own stretching and stuff like that. Great. Do that. Do what works for you. So I invite you to create your own retreat, create your own space, your own opportunity to refill, to reconnect, whether it's with others or yourself, and to give yourself an opportunity to just enjoy. I hope this episode was helpful to you and that it included just a few nuggets of goodness. For those that tune in, we really want you to take away something. And if someone in particular came to mind when you were listening to this, when you're like, oh, I should share this with so-and-so, do that. Go ahead, share this episode with them, encourage them to consider their own retreat or working with you to create a retreat for your team. And thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.